Hello, hello, hello. We're back with part 3 of the Gatsby Journal, my 1920s, roaring 20s journal. For the vintage look, I used some of the Italian wrapping paper, which I put onto to an actual repurposed book, and I Mod Podged this just to seal it, because, you know, we don't want anything coming off, and this glitter comes off. Then on the inside here, we did an acrylic water wash after we reinforced the spine and put in our Tyvek. Then I just added some ephemera pieces here, some photos that I went over with the DuraClear Soft Touch varnish. This gives like a very soft velvety feel to the finish. Bless you, Amy.
Sorry. Thank you.
No problem. I did that on both the front and the back cover of the book, and on the back I just used some wanted posters. The front is more about Prohibition. And then I went ahead and put in 2 rather large signatures into the book. And we're about 3/4 of the way through the first one, just getting some pictures and some pockets and stuff started and created and put in. And we are moving on. So I'm going to be working a little bit today on getting some more bits and pieces put in and some borders and things. And when that's all done and we've got all of our stuff in, we'll go back, look and see if we need to put any more pockets in. Obviously there's some things that we do need to complete back here. So as we add some pockets into this, then we will go ahead and start doing the lace and trim and get it all trimmed out, okay? So I'm going to start right here on this particular one, which is the Chicago Daily News for Capone being sentenced to prison. And I'm only going to round the bottom corners here, so it looks a little bit more like a folded newspaper, because I'm going to use this as a pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and put glue around the outside edge only. And I just think this would be cute with some little journaling cards in here that are wanted posters. Right? So I'm going to be doing some of those. So I've got that in. They'll be smaller than this, but we'll have some wanted posters in here, which I think will be adorable. I'm going to move on to the next page. Now on the next one here, I have an article, The Wall Street Crash, from the London Herald. So right, I am going to be rounding the corners here, making this a little rounder, and then we're going to come in and just put some ink on here. I'm using Stays On Cloudy Sky, and that's just because it's not too black, but it's not so pale that it looks too gray. Of course, this is coming apart because it stays on ink, and whenever you use Stays On ink, it eats these pads up. Alright, so I have that. I think I'm going to put it down here with glue. And once again, the theme I'm kind of working on here is more of a scrapbook than a fully laid out journal. I want this to look more like a scrapbook. So now I have this old newspaper from the Santa Ana Register, Billions Lost in Stock Crash. And I'm going to go ahead and do this one with something a little lighter. We just want this to look like old newspaper, so I'm just going to go over it with some vintage photo. And then I'm going to do something very awful. Going to crumble it up. And then I'm going to open it, and with just what's on my dauber, just going to hit the high peaks. Then I'm going to lay it out and use a bone folder to flatten it just a little bit. I don't want to take all the crinkle out, but just a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and use glue on this because I want it to kind of retain its rumbly bumbly idea. And I'm going to put this right here. I'm not putting it down too securely because I really don't want to take out too much of the crinkle. I want that look. There we go. I like it. I like it a lot. Let me hold this a little higher so you guys can see. That's the look I was going for. Kind of like an old rumbled up newspaper.
No. Go lay down.
Oh my God, I lost my fortune.
Go lay down. Go.
Alright, so then we're moving on to the next page. Here, I have a picture of a woman, a flapper, with the hidden flask in her garter on her thigh. Pretty normal for that era. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in here. And this is the great Bessie Smith. She was a jazz-era entertainer. Some of you may know about Bessie Smith due to a recent Queen Latifah movie. I do not know the name of the movie. But I grew up actually listening to Bessie Smith on a phonograph. My grandfather was a great fan of her music. I like this. So I'm going to add this here. I do need to take a little piece off the end in order to make this fit. Let's take a look. More better. So a little glue here. And again, I am using paper from Graphic 45, both their Vintage Hollywood collection and the Mon Ami collection. As well as some papers that I don't know where they came from. They're just vintage looking. They look like vintage wallpapers, so I use them. Most of the images that I have here are either from the Getty Center public images or several other public images that I have access to. Now, I do have this strip that has the stars on it, and so I was thinking, you know, this would look kind of cute on the Wall Street page. So what I'm going to do is lay this down. I'm going to mark my star and cut it off. And then I am going to glue this on this page. And I do not want it in the margin. Kind of want it to create the margin. I'm going to bring it about ½ inch out and lay it in. Alright. This one that needs to be trimmed. There we go. Now, in the center here, I'm just going to be using some of these phrases that are from the 1920s Flapper Dictionary. So, just cut one of these out for the purposes of demonstration, because I'm not going to be, you know, sitting here doing this right now. That would be redundant. we have All for Demon Hooch. Let me clean this up a little bit because it's a little off. A little better. And I think I'm going to round some corners. Little glue. Here. And this one here, I love this guy. Urgently wanted a strong rope to hang myself. Alternatively, unfurnished accommodations for my wife, unborn child, and myself. So this one I'm going to put tape on because it's paper. And you don't want to wrinkle it. I will give you this though. Once the paper has been dyed, and of course I get my colored paper, if I'm not making it myself, I get it exclusively from Amy. So something about her paper, the heat process that she uses to dye her paper, we have found that when you use her dyed paper and you print on it with a regular printer, it doesn't run. These images in the front here are just printed on her paper. They're not sprayed or treated in any way, and I put them on here and then went over them with a top coat, and there's absolutely no blur on them. So that's kind of neat. We figured that out. So I've got a couple of pages here. And then we're going to be moving into some more jazz of the era, the great Cab Calloway here. Loved me some Cab Calloway when I was a kid. You all remember him on the cartoons? He did that whole scat on the cartoon when we were kids. Now this picture of Cab Calloway is not strictly period, but how could you possibly do a Roaring Twenties without including Cab Calloway and the Cotton Club? So I went ahead and put a picture of him in, and then I got this little girl right here who seems to be playing the piano while laying atop of it. We're going to go ahead and put her in as well. Down here. And then this guy. I love this guy. Look at him. Look at this Harvard man. Right? Now, I did a little research on this picture. And, because, you know, they all had those coats. Those long mink coats in the day. And that is a guy on the campus of Harvard University wearing his mink pimp coat. That's what they call that. A pimp coat. So I'm going to include him in here because, you know, that's kind of an iconic 1920s as well. I get it. People don't like fur. Oh, we killed the tape roll. Whatever shall we do?
Did we get another one?
Alright. Let's go over and get another one, and let's get this opened up. Whew, here we go. Yep. So I get it, anti-fur activists, but, you know, this thing's 100 years old, so let's not lose our minds. And then we've got this gal here sitting on a car. Isn't she cute? So I'm going to include her, and then this guy and his dog. Little boy and his dog. And the only reason I'm including him is because he kind of reminds me of Our Gang. Remember that show when we were kids? The Our Gang kids? And they had that little dog with the one eye. And he had the one black eye and one white eye. I don't even remember the dog's name. But I remember the dog. And he's got one of those little doggies. So I'm going to put him up here in the corner. Here we go. This page is going to be blank because it's intended exactly for what it is, and that's for writing. And then we got these guys here having way too much fun pouring booze into the street. This should just be illegal. Well, I mean, it was illegal to have the booze, not to pour it out. Elliot Ness and his hitmen hurting that poor innocent alcohol. What did that alcohol ever do to them? I'm going to go ahead and put this in. And we're going to take a look at the next page. Alright, so the next page, Elliot Ness and his men are taking this poor innocent gangster man out of the court, under guard. I don't know what he possibly could have done to tick them off, but they're mad at him, so, you know. We're going to include that. I'm going to include this ad for a Chrysler. And this car, for 2 to 7 passengers, 92 horsepower, 80 miles per hour, the new Chrysler. Can you believe it? And I'm just going to do opposite corners here. And then I'm going to put this in. And then we got this little piece up here. It says 5 cents. I don't know why I'm using this money sign here, but I think it's to demonstrate that this car costs less than what I spent on Christmas this year. We'll put that in, and then we're going to be moving on. Now, this is the end of Prohibition. The end of the Prohibition period of our journal, and we're going to go ahead and get to that. I'm just going to move a few things out of the way here. Okay, so we are moving through Prohibition. We're coming up on the halfway point of the second signature. I've got, again, another car ad from the era. And this one, you know, you could buy the sedan for $825. Yep, you could. $825. I know people who have that as an electric bill every month. Of course, you know, they live in Las Vegas. We're going to put this one in. And we've got these here at the LA police station. A couple of flappers hanging out with this nice policeman. So we're going to ink this a little bit. Tape on it. Uh-oh. We got a hanging chat in there. Not up there. Alright, I'm going to put this one here. And I'm going to be using a car in here. So, let's cut a strip of these down. I think I'm going to be using this one. put that this. Now these all come out of my privately held collection of tobacco cards. And yes, I do buy these when I see them come up for sale because I don't want to actually use my vintage ones and stuff, but I do want to use authentic cards. So I'll buy them so that I can tear them up because I don't care. But I do have a collection of these that is vintage. I have multiple collections actually, and that's where I got my reprints, my reproductions from. They are mine, and under copyright law, I do have a right to have an archival copy and to make a duplicate. So I have done that with these because they are of that age. Okay, so we got that, and I'm thinking I want to add something here. So I'm going to make a pocket for this. Just get some of my ephemera out of the way here. Off the cutting board, move the glue. Do 5 inches, which just takes a little bit off there. 4. I'm going to put this right here over the top. I know, weird place to put a pocket, right? Well, guys, I gotta tell you, I've checked, and there's no rules. Thou can do what thou wist to do. Whoops. Pin on the floor is not good. Alright. So I'm going to put some glue on here. We're going to move on. I've got this one here. Love this image. An old guy dancing the Charleston with a flapper. Who looks like she's about 19. Things were a lot different back then. We're going to put this one up here. Get them straight. And then we have these lovely ladies down here. Aren't they precious? Way too much makeup, right? Alright, so we're going to go ahead and put this one in. Go. All right. This is going to be all about the Harlem Renaissance right here. Which was a huge portion of the jazz, birth of jazz in America. We've got this cute little picture down here. And of course the Cotton Club. What would we do without the Cotton Club? That is really kind of the birth of jazz right there. I'm going to go ahead and put this one in. And we're going to do a little bit here on the Depression. And again, I am putting these in haphazardly because I want this to look more like a scrapbook than just a journal. So I almost want to create the feeling that you're journaling in somebody else's historical scrapbook. Rather smartly dressed man in the Harlem Renaissance. Just some small price tags because that was 45 cents was kind of expensive back then. And we have some of these little coupons, these little stamps. These were, people actually saved these back in the day. I have some vintage green stamps too. They're just not appropriate to this journal, but I do have some that I got from one of my swap partners. And I remember my mom collecting them. These are Crown brand. They're replicas, of course. The ones I have are actual vintage. I remember my mom collected these because, like, you could collect them, and for so many of them, you would get, like, you could get stuff. And, like, I think my mom got, like, a blender or a hand mixer or something like that. And it was just collecting, you know, when she went to the grocery store, she'd spend money and they'd give her green stamps, and she would save them and use them to buy things that were on sale that you could buy with the green stamps. And it was quite a program. Mostly, I believe, on the East Coast was where it was primary. And every time you went to the store, no matter how much money you spent, you got so much in green stamps, and then you could use the green stamps to buy items in the store. That's Amy in the kitchen breaking things. And I got a couple of journaling cards here, so I'm going to be putting a corner in here as well. We'll add some glue here. Bringing it in off the edge because we may put some lace on this one. Throw a couple cards in. Probably put some of our sayings and stuff in here when we get to that portion. Alcohol. The drunkard is subject to tuberculosis, venereal disease, delirium tremens, general disability. The drunkard has children threatened with tuberculosis, rickets, insanity, epilepsy. Alcoholism means death to the nation. So I'm thinking this was probably, you know, propaganda prior to prohibition, but it's still cool. So we're going to include it. It's so much fun. And of course I'm going to be leaving the last page blank as I did the first page. Now, that's it for part 3. The next part, when we come back, we're going to be adding lace and trims and things like that to the pages. We're going to be finishing them up, adding in some of our phrases and things, and just kind of getting this all polished. So until then, if you have not done so already, please do me a favor and hit that red subscribe button for me, and like me, ring my bell, and share me with all your friends. Because, you know, I'm making this here Roaring 20s Gatsby Journal. And, you know, well, other than that, I'm slightly entertaining to watch. So until the next time, guys, thank you so much. Bye-bye.